Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. You guys are awake and ready. Last week I started with this and nobody responded, so I'm going to try again. Has anybody lost their glasses? Perhaps. They were the very last row back there like a week or two ago. Would have been 2 weeks now. Okay? I'm going to put them up here by the candles. If anyone might think that it belongs to them, you know where to find it. But as we begin Shabbat, thinking less about the things that we are leaving behind, perhaps forgetting about, we want to think about what we can bring in for our spirit for Shabbat. We're told that on Shabbat we have a double dose of spirit, if you will. And so we hope that we can take in a deep breath. Welcome Shabbat. Welcome with our breathing in and with our breathing out. A little bit of solace, a little bit of relaxation, the calm that we hope comes from being together in a community, the calm through our Shabbat prayers. We'll begin.
We start together. I hope everyone got a song sheet. And yes, it is for today, not March 10th. My sincere apologies on the date. With the words of Hine Ma Tov, how wonderful it is for us to be together.
Hine Ma Tov, u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. Hine Ma Tov, u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Ma Tov, u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. Hine Ma Tov, u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Ma Tov, u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
We continue singing together the words of Ma Yafeh Hayom, which you can find on page 10 in your prayer book.
Ma yafeh hayom, Shabbat shalom. Ma yafeh hayom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat
We continue with our candle blessing on page 2, and I believe we are honored to have Tiffany Lobertini come up and light the candles for us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadnik ner Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you. We continue together on page 20 with the words of Lecha Dodi, and as is our tradition, we will sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamu v'zachu b'dibur echad yishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'lithilah. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'lechad ki mekor habracha meirosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Itoreri, ivaorei kumiori, uri shidaberi, kevod Adonai alaich lila. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Oi v'shalom b'ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'sola, tochem b'nei am segula. Boi chala, boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We continue on page 26.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemir rabah. V'yalmad yivrach yotev yamlich malchuti. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayete kol bet Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uv'izman kariv v'yimru.
Amen.
Yehesh meraba mevarach le'olam l'me'amaya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbahar v'yitramam v'yitnasi Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shmid kudashar.
Barichu.
Vehela mikol bechata v'shirata.
Tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran me'alma.
V'himeru.
Amen. If you are able, please rise as we turn to Baruch Hu on page 28.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed.
We continue on page 30 in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, bechokma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzevaot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. On page 32, everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated. We continue on page 36.
Ve'ata et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarata bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'lektecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartan leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chshavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. On page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe that what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
Amar ki vada Adonai et Yaakov, u'ga'alo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
On page 42, grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming, to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
We continue together with the words on page 45 in the middle.
Thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day, and eternity Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibur v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Go Melech Hasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטוב, מחלקי לחיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומיתו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. נאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום הללוכה סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. Page 55. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, me'amcha Yisrael, v'tefilotam
We turn to page 58. Modim anachnu lach. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai our God and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name and truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lechodot.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael. בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם. Baruch atah Adonai hamavarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We now take a moment for silent prayer and private meditation.
We turn now to page 244, and I invite, as you are able to, for you to rise as we prepare to take the Torah from the Ark for our Torah reading. Now, I believe that this is our third Shabbat of the month, so it is our evening where we like to celebrate those of you who are celebrating. So if any of you have had a celebration in the month of May, whether it be a birthday, an anniversary, or anything else that you would like to celebrate and be recognized for, we invite you to come forward and help us with the Torah blessings. And I will bribe you with chocolate. Come on up. Oh, yes, it is. The blessing. Here we go, page 250.
Baruch Adonai HaMbarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
For those of you who are hoping to follow along, you might remember that last week we did Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek, which means that we start with the book of Bamidbar with numbers, and that can be found on page 899. V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe b'midbar Sinai b'ohel moed be'echad l'chodesh hasheni b'shna hashenit l'tzetam me'eretz Mitzrayim lemor. Se'u et rosh kol adat b'nei Yisrael l'mishbechotam l'veit avotam b'mispar shemot kol zachar l'gulgolotam miben esrim shana v'mala kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael tifkedu otam l'tzivatam Otav Atav Aharon, Ve'itchem yihiyu ish lemate, ish rosh levet avotav, hu ve'ela shemot ha'anashim asher ya'amdu itchem, LeReuven Elitzur ben Shedeur, LeShimon Shalumiel ben Tzori Shaddai, LeYehuda Nachshon ben Aminadav, hopefully you recognize his name, LeYisachar Netanel ben Zoar, LeZevulun Eliav ben Chalon, LeVnei Yosef LeEphraim Elishama ben Amihud, LeMenashe Gamliel ben Pedatzur, LeVinyamin Avidan ben Gidoni, LeDan Achiezer ben Amishadai, LaAsher Piguel ben Ochran, LaGad Elisaph ben Zeuel, LeNaftali Achira ben Enan, this is actually interesting thing. We don't ever say that there are mistakes in the Torah, but this is one where they say it's looking like one thing, but you're supposed to pronounce it otherwise, which means, in other words, there is a mistake on this word. So, Kiru'e ha'ida nisi'e matot avotam, Roshei elfei Yisrael, hem yikach Moshe v'Aharon et ha'anashim ha'ela, asher nikvu b'shmot ve'et kol ha'ida hikilu be'echad l'chodesh ha'sheni, v'yit yaldav al mishpachotam, לבית אבותם, במספר שמות מבין 20 שנה ומעלה, לגלגולותם, כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה, ויפקדם במדבר סיני. Do you all want to read the translation first? You can do the lesson. Go ahead. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Just occurs to me that people never want to read the parts where there are any names that they have to pronounce. This would not be a good portion, just for the record. So the reason I did this is because it is essentially an entire list of names and relations. The word Bamidbar, in the wilderness, is not the same as the word numbers. But why do they call it numbers? Because it starts out with the counting, with the numbers of all of the people going through each of the different tribes and how many will be there. So I will read this through for you, and hopefully you won't have to hear me say names in Hebrew and then again in Hebrew. On the first day of the second month, in the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt, the Eternal One spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting, saying, "Take a census of the whole Israelite company of fighters by the clans of its ancestral houses, listing the names, every male, head by head. You and Aaron shall record them by their groups, from the age of 20 years up, all those in Israel who are able to bear arms. Associated with you shall be a representative of each tribe, each one the head of his ancestral house. These are the names of the representatives who shall assist you. From Reuben, Elitzur, son of Shedeur. From Simeon, Shalumiel, the son of Zori Shaddai. From Judah, Nachshon, the son of Aminadav." That's the one I said, do you recognize his name? Anyone know him? Tell us why you know him. Absolutely. Everyone hear that and remember that? If you didn't hear it, I'll repeat it. There's a midrash that says that when the Israelites approached the Sea of Reeds, that Moses was really worried, of course, and was crying out to God, and there was nobody to take any type of responsibility in that moment except for this one man, Nachshon, who steps forward and jumps in with both feet into the water, and so we hear mi chamocha, but by the time it gets up to his throat, it's mi kamocha, and then the water's split. So we like to think of him as one of those who takes the first step. So even though he's right in the middle of a list, I wanted to take time to focus in on him for his action. So then we continue with from Issachar, Netanel, son of Zuar. From Zebulun, Eliab, son of Helon. From the sons of Joseph, from Ephraim, Elishama, son of Amihud. From Manasseh, Gamliel, son of Pedatsur. From Benjamin, Abidan, son of Gideoni. From Dan, Ahiezer, son of Ammishaddai. From Asher, Pagiel, son of Ochran. From Gad, Eliasaph, son of Duel. From Naphtali, Ahira, son of Enan. Those are the elected of the assembly, the chieftains of their ancestral tribes. They are the heads of the contingents of Israel. So Moses and Aaron took those representatives who were designated by name, and on the first day of the second month, they convoked the whole company of fighters who were registered by the clans of their ancestral houses, the names of those aged 20 years and over being listed by head. As the Eternal had commanded Moses, so he recorded them in the wilderness of Sinai. We are often reminded in this very first section of the census that even though it likes for us to believe that everyone was counted, we know that not everyone had been counted. We heard very specifically who they were, and it's important to us and part of our mission to always remember to not just lift up the names of those who are thought of most often, but also those who are not thought of as often. And we want to recognize those in our community who maybe have not been up here to celebrate anything for a while, but we are hopeful and thankful that you're with us. And just want to let you know how much you count and how much we appreciate having you. So in honor of your joyous event, I offer you, may the one who creates joy and fulfillment bless those who rise on this day in celebration of a simcha in their lives. May they remain grateful always, aware of their blessings, alive to the wonder that has touched their souls. Let them be messengers of delight, bringing warm smiles and the glow of happiness to all they encounter. And may the love and good fortune they have known inspire them to share with others. Our hearts rejoice with our friends today. We join with them and their families as we say, give thanks to the Eternal, for God is good. God's love endures forever. Mazel tov. The Torah in our midst, again, as we are counting all of our community, those we think of most often as well as those who sometimes need to be remembered with a little bit more intentionality. We think of all of them who are in need of healing at this time. Mishaberach avotenu ve'imotenu, nishivarach v'irapea tacholim. May the one who has blessed and kept our ancestors in every generation continue to bring blessing and healing to those we list now: Jeremy Watts, Tiffany Lobertini, Mariah Strickland, Grace Gressley, Eileen Eady, David Woods, Charles Fia, Kim Howell, Julie Wagner, Eleanor Must, Ann Burke, Catherine Cooper, Sid Gross, Cicely Nathan, Jim Locke, Gary Pacernick, Bob Kahn, Steve Samuels, and Arlene Raznick. If there are other names to be mentioned at this time, I invite you to do so as my hand goes around the room. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings healing to those in need of healing. And I believe the words are found on your daf tefillah.
Sarah us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
On the bottom of page 252 are the words that we sing as we lift and dress our Torah. If you are able to, please rise.
V'zot Torah she'sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. Ani Adonai
What I have been thinking about this week has less been about counting with Bamidbar as far as counting numbers of people, but rather still counting in the sense of the Omer as we are moving between Passover and Shavuot. And as we know, each of those days is not just a day to count, but a day to make count and a day to think about what we are being drawn to, not simply where we are running away from. And so it's finally here. This coming week, we are going to be able to celebrate the holiday of Shavuot, which is our opportunity to celebrate our receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai, not just receiving it, but accepting it. At the time we're taught that we said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will agree to do it, and then after we agreed to that, then we said, okay, what did we just say yes to? Now we will hear it. In some ways, in our own community, when one of our children is turning 13 and chooses to have a bar bat mitzvah, it is sort of in some ways the beginning where you say na'aseh, and confirmation is the second part of it, where it is to say v'nishma, and we understand it. We know what that means. And so we have coming up our confirmation of one of our students. We know that when perhaps he was 13, unfortunately right during the pandemic, his was the very last before we went to shutdown. But at that time, I don't know that he or any other child who's at that age fully can grasp what it means to accept the Torah. And so it is that we don't accept that bar bat mitzvah is the culmination of study, or that children should stop going to religious school afterwards. Rather, it's our tendency to urge our children to keep learning and to deepen their understanding of what it means to be Jewish. And so it is that when they come forward and read read with us and explain to us the importance of being Jewish, it is that they are accepting the Torah once again on Shavuot, and that they are promising an adherence to understanding and defining their relationship with the Torah. And my thought for us tonight is, shouldn't we understand our relationship to Torah as well as they do? I know sometimes it feels as if the Torah is talking directly to us. It's clear, it's relevant. How many of you felt that tonight? Maybe some of you. But there are times when sometimes we're feeling a little bit disconnected from it. There are times that we're still searching for that in to get into the text. In some ways, I'd say it mimics our experience out in the wilderness. It's that feeling of still being in between places, of uncertainty, of knowing it's ours but not exactly how you relate to it. This week's Torah portion, Bamidbar, begins with those words, in the wilderness. And the portion starts by recalling where we were, where we came from as we are leading up to Shavuot. And it makes us honor that journey because it is a reminder that the Torah was given not at some well-recognized place, but it was given in the wilderness. The wilderness was the perfect stage for our people in order to proclaim God sovereign of the world, because it was accessible to all. The site didn't belong to any one people. People try often to lay claim to where the real Mount Sinai is. I'm sure if you go to the Sinai Peninsula, there are several tours you could take. But I'd say it's probably not worth it because we aren't sure that that's where it was. And most importantly, I believe it's irrelevant to the story because Torah was given in a way that it was intended to be accessible, not marred by monuments at those places or idols. It was presented to the Israelites who had no property. They only had a few possessions. In the wilderness, they seemed to have a clean slate upon which to build their foundation of Torah. The Torah gives a lot of time, a lot of weight to that period in the wilderness. Most of our freedom journey took place in that space. Again, it's important to give honor to the lessons that we learned on the journey, of our need to move one step at a time and not to sometimes look for shortcuts. According to Rabbi Shoham in Itorei Torah, the reason that the Torah portion of Bamidbar is always read right before Shavuot, again, the time when we are receiving the Torah, is to teach us that if we want to merit receiving the Torah, we must make ourselves like the wilderness. What does that mean? What does it mean to become like the wilderness? We are taught is to have a great measure of humility, to know that you are bare like the wilderness, that you are lacking. And right now, in so many ways, we are all in the desert. According to scholar Eitan Fishbane, this idea of making ourselves like a wilderness teaches us that a heart infused with divine Torah arises through a person's mindful cultivation of their own interior wilderness. When we make ourselves like a wilderness, we then become an open vessel for spirituality and mindful living and understanding of the Torah. Each of us is on our own personal journey, Bamidbar, but we are in it together. And I invite you to take a moment to think of the description that we have in our Torah portion this week. And maybe you saw on page, I think it was 898, right before where we read. How many of you looked at that picture? Yes, some of us are very visual. And if you saw that, you saw that it lays out the community. And they had the tribes with their banners and their symbols. In this picture, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it would look a lot like this, except a little bit more mature. So, but in this, you can see that all of the tribes are evenly spaced out, spread out equal distance from the Torah, reminding us that we are each an important part of this community. Like those flags that are surrounding the Mishkan, each of us has equal access to the Torah. Each of us has the ability to experience holiness in our own way. and is part of that. It visually reminds us that Torah should always be in the center of our lives. Each of us is equally entitled to the Torah, but it is our responsibility to personally define our relationship to that Torah. So as we're entering into Shavuot on Thursday night, that's another plug, please come, let us use this festival as a roadmap through that wilderness, a stopping place for us to mark our time and offer purpose and intention so that we can step forward with our offerings of the heart, knowing, of course, that the Torah is accessible to us, to each of us, and to be able to be intentional about saying yes, even in the midst of uncertainty. Now I believe we have our counting of the Omer. If you would like to, please join with me. The blessing for the Omer ends a normal blessing formula with the words Al Sefirat HaOmer. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu Al Sefirat HaOmer. Hayom arba'av arba'im yom shehem shisha shivuot u'shnei yamim la'omer. Today is 44 days, which is 6 weeks and 2 days of the Omer. Please rise as we prepare to return the Torah to the Ark on page 256.
We continue with the words of Aleinu, which can be found on page 282. We continue together with a meditation before we read our Mourner's Kaddish on page 291.
As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember. Yesh kochavim joram magia arza, rak asher הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורותיה מבהיקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember.
Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. We are in a period of Shiv'ah for Nanette Solomon, a period of Shloshim for Harvey Taylor, Sheila Carrico, Mary Harris, and Robert Stommel. We also remember those who died at this season in years past and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We recall the yahrzeits of Sophia Friesem, Davida Block, Anna B. Cohen, Shirley Greenfield, Tilly Weinberger, Richard Tannenbaum, Corinna Dagan Shapiro, Margaret S. Becker, Lena B. Green, Benjamin Moyer, Saul Burke, Mr. Ed Colton, Ben Friedman, D. Sterling Margolis, Theodore R. Shaman Sr., Joseph N. Patterson, Gertrude Rendler, James Miller, Louis R. Marks, Rosetta R. Klein, Ella Danneman, Harry Patterson, Isaac Belinken, Wolf Marcus, Robert Hockman, Harry E. Leventhal, Joy Rosen, Robert Brackman, Stanley R. Barnett, Florence Schwartz, Adele R. Cohen, Samuel J. Harris Sr., Harris Fleece, Minnie Rudin, Earl Dorsey, Ida Himmel, Deborah Schwartz, Ida Himmel, Dr. Sidney A. Kotler, Samuel Margolis, Anna Monshine, Rose Matisoff Levinson, Emmanuel Kritzer, Ben Kaufman, Lucille Rosen Rubin, Edward Pacernick. If there are other names to mention at this time or perhaps to pronounce more correctly, I invite you to do so as my hand goes around the room. I invite all who are remembering or in mourning to please rise first. And we rise as a community for the words of Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hurtei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen, Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav huya aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zikronam livracha. May their memories always and only be for a blessing. Amen.
We close our service today singing the words of Biyado, which you can also find on your daf tefillah.
Biyado av kidruchi ve'etishan ve'ahira ve'yimruchi geviyati Adonai rim Elohira ve'yimruchi geviyati Adonai rim Elohira. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hands.
Zehayom asa Adonai nagilav v'nismechavo. This is the day that God has given us. Let us be happy and rejoice in it, and we will do so with our kiddush and motzi in the hallway. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.